So you want to know how to play basketball? Well, guess what? I've got you covered with everything you need to know in this video. And I'm going to link you at the end of this video to a playlist that will show you how to develop some of the main skills you need. So first, with that being said, let's talk about the main skills you need. Dribbling, which is bouncing the basketball up and down. And I'm also going to cover some of the rules you need to know. You want to work on this with both hands. As you get better, you can work on things like between the legs from the back, behind the back, things like inside-out dribbles, right? But that's just a little bit more advanced. Again, the playlist I'll have for you at the end will help you with that. But at the end of the day, you do have to work on your ball handling ability or your handles. That's why this channel is called Get Handles Basketball, because that allows you to move around the court, right? And you can, from there, create opportunities to shoot, to pass, to get shots off, to get layups off, and a whole bunch more. With that being said, it just covers some of the other things you need to work on. Your layups, right? When you're close to the hoop, taking a layup. You can also shoot, which means you're going to do that usually from farther away. It's going to be 10, 15, maybe even further out. If you're newer and more of a beginner, I highly recommend you start closer to the hoop. So if you're like really young and you're not very strong at this point, I would say start like right next to the hoop to work on your shooting. And some things you'll want to pay attention to with that is that I'm a lefty, so I'm going to show you with my left hand that hand is under the basketball, the other hand goes on the side, and as you release the shot, you want to drop that guide hand off. That guide hand is just there to help bring the basketball up, and then you release with just the shooting hand, and usually there'll be a little bit of a jump to it. Again, the playlist I'll have for you at the end will really help you take all this stuff next level and really improve your shooting. The other thing you'll want to work on is passing, right? So getting that ball out of your hands to a teammate is a great way to make your team a lot better. If you just are always dribbling and trying to shoot and take layups, your teammates aren't going to like you so much. And you're not going to be as good of a team, because if you're always trying to shoot, then all the defenders on the other team are just going to surround around you and wait for you to try to drive to the basket or take a shot. And it makes it really hard for you to play 1 against 5, right? But if you start passing the ball, now it's more one-on-one, just you and your defender. So there's bounce passes, there's chest passes where you get it to someone in the air, you can pass it overhead. You can get a little more advanced with things like behind the back passes. There's a lot of things you can work on. Again, I'll have another video at the end that's in that playlist that will help you more with developing different types of passing and some drills to get better at that. But you got to get some passes down. Okay, let's talk a little bit more about a couple of the other skills you need to develop, and then we'll talk rules, things you can and cannot do that are legal and illegal in basketball. Rebounding. So if someone misses a shot, catching the ball is rebounding. Pretty self-explanatory. Something you could do is, if let's say you've got someone, we'll pretend this basketball is another player, and you want to try to get a rebound, you can't jump over the top of them because that would be a foul. So we're kind of getting ahead on that. What you would want to do is try to move around them and in front of them and then jump up and try to get the rebound. If you are already in front of them, one thing you would want to do is, if I'm here, I don't want to just try to jump because they can try to jump from behind me or move around me. What I would want to do is what's called boxing out. So I'd want to, if this is their waist here, get my waist below theirs and get my butt down low here, my feet wide, so I can push them out a little bit, or at least keep them from getting around me by getting my body nice and wide. Now I can jump up and safely secure that rebound without worrying about them trying to go around me or jumping over the top of me. On defense, as someone's dribbling the basketball, you could try to steal it. If they pass the basketball, you could try to steal it. That's another skill. And then blocking shots. If someone's going up for a jump shot or a layup, you can try to block it. Now, let's talk about rules. In basketball, it's considered a non-contact sport, which means you can't really touch the other team's players. You can't like bump into them and push them. You can't slap their arms. You can't grab them. It's not football, okay? But with that being said, there is some contact that is allowed in basketball. So one example was the boxing out that I just talked about, where you're trying to go for a rebound, right? Pushing them out using your butt. That is a form of contact that is acceptable. But when you're trying to like steal the basketball and things like that, you can't push into the person you're playing defense on. You can't slap their arm. You can't hit anything but the basketball, or you're gonna get called for a foul more often than not, unless the ref doesn't happen to see it. Same thing when you're blocking shots. You can't hold their arm down to keep them from shooting. You can't slap their arm as they're shooting. You've got to get all ball. And that's why a lot of people sometimes will hear say, all ball. If they get a foul called on them that they didn't think they should have, they're saying to the ref, I hit only the ball, that shouldn't have been a foul. Another way contact is acceptable is, let's say I have a teammate here and I got a guy playing defense on me. My teammate can stand in one spot and I can rub against my teammate here. He'd be setting what's called a screen or a pick. And I can rub, and I would ideally, whether I have the basketball or not, and a lot of players will do this to get themselves open, I can rub off of him like that. And if I have the basketball, that'll allow me to now make my defender try to follow behind him. If I don't have the basketball, same thing. I could come off of that, you know, and if I have a teammate over here, they could pass me the basketball, and now I can catch it wide open because my teammate, or my defender, I should say, is trailing me. When that happens, typically, they want to set the pick, your teammate wants to set the pick in a position, like if my guy's playing defense here, he might not see my teammate, right? He might bump into him. If he bumps into him too hard, he might get called for a foul. But usually what will end up happening is my teammate here will be standing here, and he'll kind of just bump into him a little bit. And that's kind of my way of getting open by having my teammate stop him. A lot of times that won't be called as a foul unless, again, there's a lot of contact. Now, as far as other rules go, you cannot, when you're dribbling, first of all, you can't pick the basketball up with two hands and then dribble again. Now, if you catch a pass, you can start dribbling. Good to go. If you get a rebound, you know, from off the rim, you can start dribbling. That's completely fine. But if you dribble, you pick up the basketball and stop dribbling, you can now not dribble again. That would be called a double dribble because you dribbled once, stopped, and dribbled again. That's two dribbles. You can't do that. You can dribble as many times in a row as you want. You can switch hands. You know, all that stuff is completely okay as long as you don't pick up the basketball. One other form of double dribbling, which is actually called carrying, would be when your hand comes under the basketball. So you're doing this. You can't do that either because that's another form of picking the basketball. So if your hand comes more than halfway under the basketball, that would be considered carrying, which is like a form of double dribbling, okay? Another thing you can't do is pass the basketball to yourself. You can't shoot it or whatever you want to do. Anytime you put the basketball in the air, you cannot catch it again. You can't pass it over here and then come catch it. Technically, there are some ways with like your dribbles, maybe you push it all a little further and then you get back to it, that would be legal. But if it looks like a pass or a shot and you catch it again, that is not legal unless if I throw it in the air, I can catch it in the air and get rid of it. So if I go like this and then get a shot off, that would technically be legal, okay? So a little bit of a thing to remember there, but most players, like at a young age, like, and if you're getting started basketball, it's something you don't really want to worry about too much. At the end of the day, just know you can't throw the basketball up and catch it again. You can't pass it, you know, way over here and then come catch it. You know, have it bounce a bunch of times and come catch it. You can't do that. That's illegal. It's called a self-pass. Another thing you have to know, which I think we've all heard of, is traveling. You cannot take more than 2 steps, okay? And some people even say 1.5 steps. Now, keep in mind, the NBA has slightly different rules. So if you see them do something that looks like 3 steps, it's because their rules are a little bit different, okay? But with traveling, you want to think about it as picking up the basketball 1, 2, and then you could go up into a layup. If you're going to shoot the basketball, more of a jump shot, 1, 2, both feet on the ground, that's okay. You can jump into your shot. You could also, though, for a layup or a jump shot, go onto both feet and then jump, okay? That's completely legal. And that brings us to the jump stop, which is what I just did there, both feet landing on the ground. That does open some options for you with pivot feet. So if I'm going to take a 1-2 step, 1, 2, since this is the first step that I took and I picked up the basketball on that step, this foot has to stay on the ground. If I pick it up, now I can pick it up when I go into a layup, or maybe I go into a post move, right, and I jump and I can come off that foot, I gotta get rid of the basketball. So if I come here, I can pick this foot up to go into the layup, but I gotta get rid of the basketball. If I go like this, pick this back pivot foot up, I can't bring it back down. At that point, it would be a travel. So I can't come pick the basketball up here and then say, okay, now this is my pivot foot. That's a travel, okay? So that brings us back to the jump stop or the hop, landing with both feet on the ground. Now I can pick which foot I want to be my pivot foot. But once I have established one of these feet as a pivot foot, it has to remain my pivot foot. So if I decide I'm going to pick this foot up off the ground, okay, cool, I can do that, but this foot can be the only foot now that I'm using as my pivot foot. If I had selected this foot to pick up off the ground, okay, cool, I can do that, but that can be the only foot I pick up off the ground. But again, if I were to go into a shot, a lot of people don't know this, I didn't know this until recently, I can pick up that pivot foot if I'm going up into a shot and I get rid of the basketball before this foot comes back down. That foot that was the pivot foot. This foot here was the pivot foot. Now, pinned to the top comment, I will have a link to a playlist That will give you the basics as far as the skills you need to develop with passing and some drills to develop it. Your shooting, some different dribble moves you should start developing that you need to be a great player, layups, and then also talking a little bit more about what a carry is and what is not. So that thing we were talking about before where you're dribbling the basketball, because that's one thing, again, NBA players kind of ride a gray area of where it's hard to tell if they're carrying the basketball or not. So I want to make sure you're really clear on what the rules are as far as that goes so you don't get called for carries when you're playing in basketball games. And be sure you stay tuned to my channel because I'll have a lot more videos to help you keep improving your game, whether it's basics, more advanced, drills, a whole bunch more. And I'm always going to be trying to help you get better. Be sure to like this video if it helped you out and subscribe and click the bell icon so you can catch those newest videos that are coming out. And I'll also actually have a free ball handling workout pinned for you there. That'll help you improve both your athleticism and your dribbling the basketball at the same time. It's helped thousands of players. I'm sure it'll help you too, and it is free. So be sure you grab that and check out that entire playlist, and you should be on a great start to becoming an awesome basketball player.